If this kingdom will crown a king built on lies, let it do so while looking into the eyes of the daughter it casts away.
I do not want a throne soaked in my sister's tears. If you're placed beside me, then I choose to stand alone.
I think you are the only one in this palace who truly knows what it means to be hungry. A ruler who has eaten hunger is less likely to serve it to others.
African Karma Stories.
The drums of the Kingdom of Agyeman thundered so loudly that the very walls of the royal courtyard seemed to vibrate. Sunlight glinted off golden bracelets and crowns. Chiefs sat in rows, wrapped in rich Kent cloth. Women in bright wrappers danced, ululating as they tossed white powder into the air. Warriors lined the perimeter, spears upright, faces stern. Today was Coronation Day. On the raised platform beneath a canopy of embroidered cloth, Prince Kojo stood in magnificent regalia. Gold rested heavy on his arms and neck. A leopard-skin sash draped across his chest. Beside him, on a low stool, sat King Kofi. Older now, beard shot with gray, his shoulders bowed by both age and something heavier, regret. In front of Kojo, the royal stool waited, polished until it shone. The crown lay on a velvet cushion, its jewels catching every flicker of sunlight. Chief Priest Torgbai stood near the stool, white robes billowing, his carved staff in hand. His eyes gleamed with self-importance. Today, he proclaimed, voice booming, the god smile on Agyeman. Today we crown a new king, Kojo, son of Kofi. May his reign be long, and may he protect this land from all enemies, seen and unseen. The crowd roared. But as Torgbai raised his staff high to begin the final blessing, a disturbance rippled through the back of the courtyard. At first it was just murmurs, then shouts. "Make way," someone yelled. "Who is that woman?" Guards rushed to block the main gate, but a figure in a plain brown cloth and a long veil pushed through, moving with a mix of determination and exhaustion. Her steps stirred dust. Her presence stirred memories. An old elder near the front squinted, his heart jolting. "By the gods," he whispered, "is that not the Banished princess?" Heads turned. The drums faltered on the platform. King Kofi's breath stopped in his throat. The veiled woman reached the edge of the cleared space and looked up at the throne. When she spoke, her voice carried like a bell. "If this kingdom will crown a king built on lies," she called, "then let it do so while looking into the eyes of the daughter it cast away." A collective gasp burst from the crowd. Queen Abena, seated beside the king in shimmering cloth, went pale beneath her powder. Prince Kojo gripped the edge of the stool. The woman climbed 2 steps of the platform, hands trembling, and lifted her veil. The sun fell on her face. Time folded. King Kofi's eyes flooded. "Adjoa," he breathed. "My child." The princess they had all believed dead, or worse, stood before them, alive, older, but with the same fierce fire in her eyes. Before anyone could move, before the staff could fall, the story yanked itself backward, to the days before a crown and a banishment tore the kingdom in two. Earlier that same morning, the palace had been quieter. From the balcony overlooking the courtyard, King Kofi watched servants hang banners and sweep the stones. The air smelled of palm wine and roasted meat, preparations for celebration. Yet his face was not joyous. He leaned heavily on the carved railing, eyes distant. Queen Abena glided toward him, jewels chiming softly. "My husband," she said sweetly, resting a hand on his arm. "Why such a heavy face on such a blessed day? The gods have allowed you to see your son crowned. Few kings live long enough for such honor." Kofi sighed. "It is an honor," he agreed quietly. "Kojo is brave, and the people love him. But a father's heart is wide. It has room for more than one child." Abena's lips tightened almost imperceptibly. "We have already poured libation for the one who is gone," she replied. Let her spirit rest. Dwelling on the past will only disturb the peace of this day. He closed his eyes briefly. Princess Adjoa's laughter echoed in his mind, her small hand gripping a wooden sword, her voice insisting, "One day I'll protect this kingdom, Papa." He forced the memory away. "Sometimes," he murmured, "I wonder if we listen too quickly to the gods, or to those who claim to speak for them." Abena stiffened. "Are you doubting the priest?" she asked sharply, then softened her tone. "You saw the poison. You saw the visions." She confessed. She never confessed, Kofi interrupted, pain flickering in his eyes. She only cried, "I am innocent," until they dragged her away. Abena looked out over the courtyard, jaw clenched. "She is gone," she said firmly. "The gods demanded a sacrifice. The kingdom survived. Kojo will be crowned. That is what matters now." Kofi did not answer. Deep in his chest, a crack he had tried to ignore widened. The kingdom was marching toward a coronation, but the ghosts of its decisions were already on their way. Years earlier, the same courtyard had echoed with a different kind of sound. Again, Princess Adjoa shouted, wooden sword raised high. Sweat glistened on her brow as she faced off against two palace guards at once. Their own practice, swords meeting hers with clacks that rang out like music. She darted left, blocked a strike, spun, and tapped one guard's chest. "You are dead," she said, grinning. He laughed, shaking his head. "Nana Adjoa, you fight like 10 soldiers," he said. "No man in Agyeman will sleep peacefully if you look at him like that." She twirled the sword playfully. "Then they should behave themselves," she retorted. Children from the palace households sat on the low wall, cheering. "Princess, hit him again. Teach them." When training ended, Adjoa softened instantly, handing her sword to the captain. She sat with the children, listening as one small boy complained that older boys bullied him in the village. "You will not fight them alone," she told him. "Tomorrow, I will come. We will talk to them together." She moved from child to child, tying a loose wrapper, wiping a nose, promising to speak to a lazy father who refused to send his daughter to school. The people loved her not because of the gold around her neck, but because of the way she leaned down to hear them. On the balcony above, King Kofi watched, pride warming his face. "Look at her," he said softly to the council elder beside him. "She has my stubbornness, but her mother's heart." The elder smiled. "The land will be safe in her hands," he answered. Behind them, in the shadows of the hallway, Queen Abena watched too. But her gaze was not softened. It was calculating. Her own son, Kojo, stood beside her, fidgeting. "Mother," he muttered, "why do they always cheer louder for Adjoa?" "I'm also royal." "Because she is older," Abena replied, eyes never leaving the courtyard. "And because your father has allowed them to forget something important." "What is that?" Kojo asked. Abena's smile was thin. "That this kingdom has always been ruled by kings," she said, "not queens." A short time later, the throne room filled with elders, each draped in cloth that told stories of battles and treaties. King Kofi sat on the golden stool, lion carvings curving beneath his hands. To his right stood Adjoa, hair braided neatly, golden band around her forehead. To his left stood Kojo, eyes wandering, fingers playing with his necklace. An elderly linguist stepped forward, staff in hand. "Let it be remembered," he intoned, "that in the Kingdom of Agyeman, the stool does not pass only through sons. The law of our ancestors states, the first child of the king, born of royal blood and trained for leadership, is heir. Whether that child is male or female, the throne recognizes wisdom, not only beard." Some younger chiefs murmured approval. Others looked uneasy. King Kofi nodded. "My first child is Adjoa," he declared. "She is trained in war and in wisdom. She has listened to the cries of our people. When my time on this earth ends, she will be ready. Abena's jaw tightened. Her eyes flashed to Kojo, who looked startled, then resentful. But my king, one more conservative elder interjected cautiously. Some may say a woman cannot sit on the war stool. The other kingdoms may laugh. Kofi smiled faintly. Let them laugh, he said. Our land has many brave men. What it needs is a brave heart and clear mind. Adjoa has both. Adjoa bowed slightly, gratitude in her gaze. Behind a pillar, unseen, Chief Priest Torbai watched the exchange, his fingers drumming on his staff. After the meeting, as Adjoa walked away with Kweku, laughing about something he said, Abena's whisper coiled into the priest's ear. You heard him, she murmured. My son will never sit on that stool as long as she breathes. Torbai's lips curled. The gods speak in many ways, he replied quietly. Sometimes they need a little help to be heard. Queen Abena's private chambers smelled of imported perfume and burning incense. She paced, gold bangles clinking angrily. My father was chief, she snapped. Yet I grew up watching men with less sense than my mother rule over her advice. I did not scheme my way into this palace just to watch another woman take the stool while my son stands clapping. Chief Priest Torbai sat calmly on a low stool, sipping palm wine. Then why did you wait so long to speak? He asked. The law has been there since your husband's grandfather. Because I thought the king would come to his senses, she hissed. But he is blinded by that girl. Every day, he trains her as if she were prince. He sends Kojo to sit in classes while she rides with the warriors. The people love her stories. They forget he is even there. Torbai swirled the wine in his calabash. The gods rarely interfere in matters of succession unless there is danger, he said slowly. But if danger appears, they must be heard. And of course, their messenger must be compensated. Abena's eyes narrowed. Danger, she repeated. A vision could come, he said, voice dropping to a whisper. One that warns. A female in the royal house will bring blood to the throne. If she is not removed, the kingdom will fall. He paused. And if such a vision coincidentally points toward your husband's daughter, people will not question it. They will fear it. Abena's heart pounded. Can such a vision be arranged? She asked. Torbai smiled thinly. As I said, he replied, the gods speak in many ways. Sometimes they bend, just a little, toward those who feed their shrines well. She reached for a heavy pouch of cowries and gold dust, dropping it beside him. Then let them bend, she said, because I will not watch my son bow to his sister forever. As the pouch hit the floor, unseen cracks began to form in the kingdom's future. Far from plots and incense, Adjoa knelt in the palace herb garden, fingers stained green. Kweku, the young herbalist and palace guard, handed her a stalk of bitter leaf. You crush this, mix with honey, he explained, and old Chief Badu's cough will stop chasing his sleep away. Adjoa sniffed it. It smells like punishment, she wrinkled her nose. Are you sure we're not trying to kill him? Kweku laughed. You wanted to keep shouting at council meetings? He teased. Don't worry. The bitterness fights sickness. The honey persuades the tongue to accept it. She smiled. You, in your wisdom, she said. Sometimes I think the herbs talk to you. They talk to anyone who listens, he replied. Like your people. She sat back on her heels, thoughtful. Do you think I'm ready? She asked suddenly. To rule, I mean. Everyone keeps telling me stories of my grandfather's wars, my father's negotiations. What if I fail them? He met her gaze. I think you're the only one in this palace who truly knows what it means to be hungry, he said. You have seen it in the villages. You have felt it in the eyes of those children you read stories to at night. A ruler who has eaten hunger is less likely to serve it to others. She smiled softly. Coming from you, that means something, she said. He looked away, hiding a small flush. If they ever try to take that stool from you, he added quietly, they will have to walk over my body first. She placed a hand over his. Let us hope it never comes to that, she replied. In the distance, thunder rumbled though the sky was clear. The herbs swayed, as if whispering a warning. Night draped itself over the kingdom like a dark cloak. Torches flickered along the palace walls. The air smelled of rain, though none had fallen yet. Inside the palace shrine, Chief Priest Torbai moved like a shadow. He painted strange symbols on the floor with white chalk and sprinkled powdered herbs into a smoking pot. Drums beat slowly outside, deep and ominous. King Kofi and the Council of Elders entered, their faces lit by firelight. My king, Torbai said dramatically, the gods have been restless. I asked what troubles them. Tonight, they have answered. He began to sway, eyes rolled up, voice changing to a low chant. The blood of the stool is in danger, he intoned. A child of the palace, a female born of royal blood, will raise hand against the king. If she is not removed before the day of coronation, innocent blood will soak the earth and the kingdom will shatter. The elders shifted uneasily. One whispered, female? Could it be one of the king's wives? Torbai slammed his staff. No, he roared. This one carries warrior spirit. She walks with sword. She frequents the herb garden. She laughs at danger. Eyes flicked toward Adjoa, who stood at the back of the room, brow furrowed, having been summoned as heir. Queen Abena placed a hand over her mouth, pretending shock. Spirits, have mercy, she gasped. Adjoa stepped forward. If the gods accuse me, she said, let them speak clearly. I have never raised weapon against my father. Torbai glared at her. The gods have spoken, he snapped. Your tongue cannot erase their word. Beware, my king. Keep watch. Harm will come from where you least expect. Fear gnawed at the room. King Kofi's heart pounded. He loved his daughter, but the memory of past plagues and wars, always blamed on kings who ignored warnings, whispered in his ear. Let us pray more, he said, voice unsteady, and let everyone in this palace tread carefully until the coronation is done. Adjoa's fists clenched at her sides. She looked up at the shrine, at the carved faces of gods who had never frightened her before. For the first time, she felt them glaring back, not with truth, but with the weight of someone else's lies. The days that followed were thick with suspicion. Servants who once greeted Adjoa warmly now bowed more stiffly, eyes skittering away. Two maids who used to braid her hair whispered to each other, glancing at her room. Did you hear? One murmured. The priest said the danger is close to the herb garden. And who spent the most time there? Her friend shivered. Princess Adjoa, she replied. And that herbalist boy. Maybe they are mixing more than medicine. In the corridor, Queen Abena walked slowly beside King Kofi. I cannot sleep, she sighed. Every time I close my eyes, I see someone standing over your bed with a knife. I told you to stop filling your ears with market gossip. Kofi replied tiredly. We have no knife here. But there are herbs, she said softly. Strange ones Kweku brings from the bush. And Adjoa handles them as if she knows all their secrets. Those herbs heal people, Kofi said. Or harm them, if heart behind them turns dark, Abena whispered. You saw how bold she has become. Sometimes she contradicts even you in council. What if power is already turning her head? He frowned. She is passionate, he said. That is not crime. Abena sighed deeply, the picture of troubled loyalty. I love her like my own, she lied. I only fear that the god's warning is blinding you. If something happens and we did nothing, the people will say we chose daughter over destiny. Her words tangled with the priest's prophecy in his mind. Doubt took root, curling its fingers around his love. One afternoon, as the sun hung hot overhead, King Kofi sat in the throne room receiving petitions. A farmer complained about a neighbor stealing goats. A widow asked for help repairing her roof. He listened carefully, offering solutions, promising aid. A servant poured him palm wine into a golden cup. He took a sip. It tasted off. A strange bitterness lingered. He frowned slightly. "New wine?" he asked. The servant shook his head nervously. "From the same calabash, my king," he said. Kofi shrugged, set the cup down, and continued hearing cases. Moments later, his vision blurred. The room spun. Hands reached for him as he clutched his stomach, gasping. "My king!" Elders shouted, rushing forward. Kofi collapsed, body shaking. Foam formed at the corners of his mouth. Panic erupted. "Get the priest," someone yelled. "Call Kweku. Close the gates." Chief priest Torbai burst into the room dramatically, robes swirling. He knelt by the king, sniffed the spilled palm wine, and recoiled theatrically. "Poison," he cried. "The prophecy has come. Someone has struck at the king's life." Whispers exploded across the hall. "Poison. The gods were right. Which woman did they speak of?" Torbai's eyes swept the room. They landed on Adjoa, who had just rushed in after hearing the commotion, face white with horror. "Bring the guards," Torbai commanded coldly. "Search every chamber connected to the herb garden. The enemy is close." Adjoa stared from her convulsing father to the priest, heart pounding. She had never felt so helpless, or so hunted. The palace guard captain, confused but obedient, gathered his men. "Search everywhere," he ordered. "The king's life is in danger." The men moved quickly, storming down corridors. When they reached Adjoa's quarters, they hesitated. "Forgive us, princess," the captain said. "We must search every room." Adjoa stepped aside, shock still numbing her. "Do what you must," she said faintly. "Just save my father." They tore through shelves and baskets, tossing clothes, opening chests. One guard reached under her bed and froze. "Captain," he called, pulling out a small clay jar corked and sealed. A bitter smell wafted from it. "What is that?" Adjoa asked, eyes wide. The captain uncorked it and sniffed, face contorting. "By the gods," he whispered, "this smells like the same thing from the king's cup." Another guard held up a folded piece of cloth. "My captain," he said, "look, this is the king's sleeping cloth, and it is stained with something dark." Adjoa staggered back. "That can't be," she stammered. "I have never seen those before. Someone put them there." One of Queen Abena's maids smirked slightly in the corner where she thought no one could see. Kweku burst into the room, breathless. "What is happening?" he demanded. The captain held up the jar. "We found this under the princess's bed," he said heavily. Kweku's eyes widened. "That is not poison," he protested. "It is medicine. I prepared similar jar for a villager last month. For stomach worms. Anybody can confirm." Torbai appeared in the doorway like a shadow. "Do not twist the truth, boy," he snapped. "You spread your herbs like spider webs across this palace. Now the web has caught its maker." Kweku clenched his fists. "It makes no sense," he argued. "If the princess wanted to harm the king, would she hide the poison under her own bed like child? This is madness." But fear is louder than logic. Guard seized Adjoa's arms gently but firmly. "I am innocent," she cried, struggling. "I would rather die than harm my father. Please listen." Her words bounced off walls already primed for guilt. They dragged her toward the council hall. The gods, it seemed, had spoken, or so everyone believed. The council hall, usually a place of measured debate, crackled with tension. King Kofi lay on a mat near the throne, breathing shallowly, eyes half closed. A healer fanned him. Queen Abena knelt beside him, wailing loudly. "My husband," she cried, "who has done this to you? Who has used our own table to deliver death?" Adjoa was forced to stand in the center, wrists bound by rope. Kweku stood near the back, jaw tight, eyes burning. Chief priest Torbai raised his staff. "Council of Agyeman," he declared, You have seen the prophecy. You have seen the evidence. Now you must decide whether to protect the king or to shield the one who brings doom. An elder cleared his throat. Princess Adjoa, he said sadly, do you deny owning the clay jar and cloth found in your room? I deny ever seeing them before today, she replied firmly. I did not even allow my maid to clean under my bed without me present. Someone planted them there. Abena sobbed harder. Why would anyone wish to plant such evil in your room? She wailed. Everybody loves you. Her eyes darted to Kojo briefly, then away. Another elder asked, have you, or have you not, been spending time with herbs and potions with this? Kweku, yes, Adjoa answered. To heal, not to harm. Ask the villagers with scars healed by our mixtures. Ask the children whose fevers broke. We treat those your priests often ignore. Torbai sneered. Even poison can heal in small drops and kill in large ones, he said. And sometimes people who start as healers become hungry for more power than leaf can give. Kweku stepped forward. With respect, priest, he said, if you accuse us of turning evil, show proof beyond jars anyone could place and dreams only you saw. Gasps. It was dangerous to challenge the priest. Torbai's eyes flashed. You dare to question the god's mouth? He thundered. Who are you? Just a boy who mixes leaves. Sit down before lightning finds you. Guard shoved Kweku back. Abena wiped fake tears. My heart breaks, she sniffed. I loved Adjoa like my own daughter. I begged the king to ignore the prophecy. But now, the jar, the cloth, we cannot close our eyes. She turned to Kofi, voice trembling. My king, if you spare her, and she tries again when the gods no longer warn, what will people say? That you chose your love for her over your duty to us all. Kofi stared at Adjoa, vision hazy. He saw not the strong woman before him, but the little girl who once brought him wildflowers and said, I will keep you safe, Papa. Father, Adjoa whispered, tears streaming, look into my eyes. You have always known when I lied, about stolen mangoes, about sneaking to river. Look now. Do you see any lie? He searched her gaze. All he saw was desperate honesty. But the priest's prophecy pounded in his ears. The elder's fearful eyes weighed on him. The memory of kings who ignored warnings and lost their thrones whispered caution. His lips trembled. For peace, he said hoarsely, for the safety of the kingdom, you must go, until the gods say otherwise. Adjoa's knees buckled. No, she whispered. Papa. Guards grabbed her as she reached for him. He turned his face away, a tear slipping down his cheek. The council, eager to end their fear, murmured agreement. Banished, one said. Until the gods are satisfied, another added. In the corner, Torbai and Abena shared a quick, hidden glance. Kojo watched, confusion and guilt flickering in his eyes. He had not asked for this, but a small, shameful part of him felt a strange relief. The path to the stool had just been cleared. Clouds gathered overhead as the palace gates creaked open. Adjoa stood just inside, stripped of her gold and fine cloth. She wore only a simple brown wrapper, feet bare, wrist free now, but still smarting from where the ropes had been. Two guards flanked her, faces grim but eyes sad. Princess, the older one whispered. If it were up to us, she managed a weak smile. I know, she said. You followed orders when they favored me. You follow them now that they do not. That is a soldier's curse. The gates began to swing outward. Villagers who liked her looked on from a distance, fear and sorrow mixing on their faces. Few dared speak. None dared step closer. As she walked through, an aged elder, the same one who had praised her wisdom years before, pressed something into her hand, a small leather pouch. There is dried cassava and herbs, he murmured. It will not last long, but it is something. Remember, truth walks slowly, but it arrives. Do not let this place be the end of your story. Her throat tightened. Thank you, she whispered. Kweku, bruised from trying to fight his way to her earlier, broke free from a guard's grip and ran after her. Adjoa, he shouted. She turned. He reached her just as the guards moved to push him back again. I swear, he said, breathless, I will prove they lied. I'll find the roots of this poison and cut them. She placed a hand over his. Stay alive first, she said softly. Dead men cannot clear names. A guard yanked him away. The gates boomed shut behind her. Rain began to fall, cold and relentless. Adjoa pulled the thin cloth tighter around herself, lifted her chin, and began walking toward the unknown. Each step away from the palace echoed with a vow. I will not die because of their lies. And one day, this kingdom will see my face again. The village that eventually took her in was far from the palace, past fields, rivers, and memories. At first, they knew nothing of her. She arrived soaked, exhausted, insisting only that her name was Adjoa from the north. A kind widow gave her a mat in her hut. In the mornings, Adjoa rose before dawn to fetch water. Her palms blistered from carrying heavy buckets, but she didn't complain. At midday, she joined other women on the farm, learning to plant yams and weed cassava. At night, she sat under a tree with children gathered around, telling them stories of wise queens and just kings, changing names, hiding her own. Did such a queen really exist? One child asked. Adjoa smiled. Maybe, she replied. Maybe she still does. When villagers fell sick, she remembered Kweku's teachings, the herbs, the mixtures. She treated fevers with neem leaf, rubbed aching joints with shea and ginger, eased stomach pains with bitter roots and honey. Word spread quietly. Go to Adjoa, people said. She knows the leaves. She listens. One day, the village chief called her. You are not ordinary wanderer, he observed. You speak like someone who has sat in big places. She bowed her head. I have sat in many places, she answered. Some high, some low. All taught me something. He nodded slowly. Wherever you came from, he said, know that this place values what you bring. You are welcome here. In exile, she found a strange peace. But every time she looked at the moon, its shape reminded her of the golden crown that should have rested on her head. Months turned into years. Adjoa's hair grew longer. The lines around her eyes deepened, not from bitterness, but from sun and laughter with her new village. One evening, a traveling trader stopped by the widow's compound to share news. Have you heard from the capital? He asked between bites of roasted plantain. King Kofi survived that poisoning years ago, but he never fully recovered. They say he moves like old man now. Adjoa's hand stilled. And what of the heir? The widow asked. The trader shrugged. Everyone speaks of Prince Kojo now, he said. He sits in council. The people call him future king. They say the king has not mentioned his firstborn daughter in seasons. Some even say she died in the bush. Adjoa stared at the fire. She felt like a ghost listening to rumors of her own death. Kojo will be crowned next harvest, the trader continued. Priestess set date. They're preparing big celebration. New era for Agyeman, they say. The widow glanced at Adjoa, sensing a storm behind her calm expression. But Adjoa only nodded, voice even. May the kingdom find the leader it deserves, she said softly. Inside, another voice whispered, or the leader it has chosen. Back in the palace, Kweku had not forgotten his vow. The first months after Adjoa's banishment had been hard. He had been demoted, his access to certain places restricted, his knowledge dismissed as dangerous. But he watched. He listened. One night, as he cleaned the corner of a storage room near the priest's quarters, he heard voices through a thin wall. Queen Abena's sharp whisper cut through. You said once would be enough, she snapped. The poison was too strong. What if he had died? Torbai snorted softly. Then you would be Queen Mother of Kojo, and we would not be having this conversation, he replied. You wanted fear, remember? A taste of death, not the whole meal. I gave it. You planted the jar in her room like we agreed, she pressed. Of course, he said. You made earned her coin. The gods rarely speak so clearly. They needed guidance. Kweku froze, heart thudding. He leaned closer, every sense sharp. We must be careful, Abena said. Old men talk. That elder who always defended Adjoa still looks at me like he knows something. Let him look, Torbai replied. He has no proof, only suspicions. As long as we keep the real documents safe, no one can challenge Kojo's claim. Kweku slipped away, mind racing. Documents, he thought. Proof. Days later, he sneaked into the unused back room of the priest's hut when Torbai was at a ceremony. There, under a loose floorboard, he found a small box. Inside were receipts for rare poison bought from a distant town, signed by Queen Abena's maid. There were notes about dosage and ceremony timing. His hand shook, but the biggest shock came when he found a leather ledger with names and amounts. Beside a large payment entry was written, for changing prophecy in favor of Prince Kojo. Kweku's mouth went dry. He carefully copied key pages onto new parchment and hid them in his own quarters, knowing if he kept originals, discovery would come quickly. What I need now, he thought, is confession no one can deny. That confession came sooner than he expected. One humid evening, the palace buzzed with preparations for the upcoming coronation. Drums practiced outside. Tailors stitched new cloth. Inside the shrine, Torbai sat alone, drinking palm wine, his usually sharp eyes slightly dull. Kweku positioned himself in the shadows just outside the door, cloth wrapped around his bare feet to muffle sound. Inside, the priest muttered to himself. They think I sleep, he grumbled. They forget the gods see me too. So what if I took some gold? The kingdom is stable, is it not? Kojo will be king. The girl, she would have brought war. Or so he told them. He laughed bitterly, taking another gulp. Adjoa, he slurred. Proud, stubborn girl. Always questioning. Never feared me. I had to show her and show them who really holds power. He slammed the cup down, liquid splashing. If they knew there was no real vision, he scoffed, only smoke and mirrors, they would drag me out like goat. But they don't. They bow. Kweku's heart raced. This is it, he thought. He had brought a small clay pot earlier, pretending to store herbs. Now, hidden behind it under his cloak, a simple charcoal stylus and smooth piece of wood scratched quietly, capturing every word. Torbai continued, voice thick. No prophecy, no poison jars hidden under bed, no stage collapse, and the stool would belong to her, he said. All because a queen could not bear to see her son come second. Bah, he spat. They call me mouth of gods, he muttered. Yet they eat me with their greed. Kweku slipped away silently, heart pounding with both fear and relief. He now had the one thing stronger than rumor, a record of the priest's own mouth condemning him. In his private chamber, King Kofi sat in semi-darkness, only a single lamp flickering. His once broad shoulders had thinned. The scar of that poison day lingered in the way his hand sometimes shook when he tried to lift a cup. On a small table before him lay an old piece of cloth with childlike drawings, stick figures of a king, a princess, and a son above them. In wobbly writing at the top it read, Me and Papa, Adjoa, age 7. He traced the letters with trembling fingers. Where did we go wrong? He whispered. The elder who had once defended Adjoa entered quietly. My king, he said, bowing. Kofi sighed. Sit, old friend, he murmured. Tonight I have no strength to pretend all is well. The elder lowered himself carefully onto a stool. The coronation is coming, he said gently. The people are excited. Kofi stared at the drawing. Are they? He asked. Or do they just fear change? The elder hesitated. Some of us, he began slowly, still remember what happened before this date was set. We remember how fast the trial went, how quickly the prophecy appeared and disappeared once she was gone. Kofi's jaw tightened. You think we were wrong, he said. I think, the elder replied carefully, that we may have listened more to men than to gods. The priest gained much from that day. The queen gained more. The only one who lost everything was the one who never had chance to defend herself properly. Kofi closed his eyes. In my dreams, he said, voice cracking, Adjoa stands at the edge of a river. I call to her. She turns, but her face is covered. Each time I wake before I see her eyes. I am tired, brother, tired of waking with this weight on my chest. Silence. Some debts cannot be paid in this lifetime, the elder said softly. But sometimes truth gives us a chance to try. Kofi looked up sharply. What do you know? He demanded. The elder met his gaze steadily. Only that the gods' justice is slow, he answered, but it walks with purpose. If we open the gate, it may yet enter this palace before the crown rests permanently. That same night, under a different sky, Adjoa sat outside her hut in the exile village, watching fireflies dance. A familiar voice broke the quiet. Always staring at small lights, Kweku said, as if they hold the whole sky's secrets. She turned, startled, then leaped to her feet. Kweku, she breathed. He looked older, a scar along his jaw, but his eyes were the same. They embraced tightly. I have been looking for you, he said. The palace sent men to chase me away when I asked too many questions. But they do not know the forest paths as I do. She laughed weakly. I thought you were dead, she confessed. Not yet, he replied. The gods are not finished with me, or with you. They sat by the fire as he spread out the copies of documents he had brought, receipts, notes, and, most importantly, the wooden slate on which he had scribbled Torbai's drunken confession. Adjoa's hand shook as she read. Poison bought by the queen's maid, she murmured. Payment to priest for changing prophecy. Her jaw clenched. So I was not just sacrificed to appease fear, she said. I was removed to pave a road. Kweku nodded grimly. Their road ends at Coronation in 3 days, he said. Once Kojo is crowned, challenging the story becomes almost impossible. But if we present truth before the crown falls, the people may still listen, she finished. He studied her face. After all they did, he asked quietly, do you still want that stool? She stared into the fire. I wanted it once, she admitted. For honor, for change. Then I only wanted my father's eyes to see me as his daughter, not as cursed thing. Now, I don't know what I want. She lifted her gaze to his. But I know what the kingdom needs, she said. It needs to know that its gods are used as tools. It needs to see that women are not so easily erased. I cannot heal in exile while my people live under a lie. He nodded. Then we go, he said. She inhaled deeply. We go, she agreed. Not with army, not with weapons. With truth. Let's see if it is still sharp enough. They packed quietly, knowing the journey back would be dangerous. But for the first time in years, Adjoa walked toward the palace not as hunted victim, but as storm. Morning broke bright and loud over Agyeman. The palace courtyard shone with fresh white sand. Colorful umbrellas sprouted like flowers above chiefs' heads. Drummers rehearsed the rhythms of power. Women carried trays of food, laughter filling the air. Prince Kojo stood before a mirror, attire being adjusted by attendants. You look like your grandfather, one said. Strong, fearless. Kojo stared at his reflection. He saw the gold, the fabric, and behind them, the memory of a girl being dragged away in chains. Do I? He murmured. Queen Abena entered, dismissing the attendants with a gesture. "My king," she said proudly, straightening his necklace. "Today your father will place kingdom on your shoulders. Are you ready?" He forced a smile. "I will try to be," he answered. She cupped his face. "You were always meant for this," she insisted. Adjoa's path was clouded. The gods made that clear. Do not let ghosts steal your joy. He swallowed. But what if she cut him off sharply? "No more what ifs," she said. "Only I will. Walk out there like man who knows throne is his by right." He nodded slowly. Outside, the chief priest tested his staff's weight, satisfied. King Kofi, robed and crowned, was led carefully to his seat on the platform, his eyes searching crowd as if for something or someone. The air thickened with expectation. The kingdom believed this day would seal its future. It didn't know it was about to reopen an old wound. Before the main ceremony, elders gathered in a shaded corner of the courtyard, away from the music. The elder who had once defended Adjoa leaned on his stick. "Do you ever think of that day?" he asked a younger chief beside him. "When we banished the princess?" The younger man shifted. "Old man, we followed the priest's words," he said. "What else could we do? We could have asked more questions," the elder replied softly. "Fear shut our mouths. Gold shut the priests." Another chief joined them, lowering his voice. "Since that day, I have not seen Torgbai perform any prophecy that did not also benefit the queen," he muttered. "It makes me uneasy." "Hush," the younger one warned, glancing toward guards. "Today is Kojo's day. Do not stir sleeping lions." The elder looked toward the gate. "Lions are not the only things that wake," he said. "Sometimes ghosts find their way home." A gust of wind swept through, lifting the edge of the coronation banner. For a second, sunlight speared straight down the central path from the gate to the throne. It looked like an invitation, or a warning. The drummers shifted to a deeper rhythm as the main ceremony began. People stood, women ululated. The air vibrated with anticipation. On the platform, Chief Priest Torgbai raised his staff high. "Spirits of our ancestors," he cried, "we stand before you to place this crown on the head of Kojo, son of Kofi. If there is any among us unworthy, speak now or be silent forever." Silence followed. Then, shouting at the gate, "Open the way," a voice commanded. Guards moved to block, but a figure in dusty brown cloth and veil strode forward, unyielding. "I said open the way," she repeated louder. "Or will you fight the daughter of the king at his own coronation?" The crowd rippled. People craned their necks. "Is it a madwoman?" someone whispered. "Her walk looks familiar," another said. The elder at the side gripped his staff. "Truth," he murmured, "has come walking." The guards hesitated, looking to the king for direction. Kofi stared, heart pounding. For a heartbeat, he thought he was seeing his dream embodied, the veiled figure at the river. "Let her approach," he rasped. Queen Abena shot him a startled look. "Your Majesty." His eyes did not leave the approaching figure. "I said, let her approach," he repeated. Reluctantly, the guards stepped aside. Murmurs swelled as the woman entered the cleared space, head held high, though dust coated her bare feet. She climbed 2 steps of the platform, looked directly at Kojo, then turned to face the crowd. "I am Adjoa," she announced, voice strong. "Firstborn of King Kofi, the one you call poison, the one you cast out. If you will crown my brother over my grave, let it not be behind my back." Gasps exploded. Kojo's face went white. Abena's hand flew to her mouth, real fears sparking for the first time. Chief Priest tightened his grip on his staff. "Witchcraft," he shouted. "They have conjured her spirit to confuse us." Adjoa reached up slowly and lifted her veil. Her face, though older and lined by exile, was unmistakable. King Kofi's eyes filled with tears. "My child," he whispered. "I thought I thought you were dead, she finished quietly. Many days so did I. The drums had fallen silent. The entire kingdom seemed to be holding its breath. Before you place that crown, she said, turning back to the crowd, you must decide whether it will rest on truth or on theft. Adjoa reached into the small leather satchel slung across her shoulder and pulled out wrapped bundles of parchment and a small clay jar. I did not come here with only words, she said. I know how easily they were twisted before. She held up the jar. You accused me of hiding poison under my bed, she reminded them. Yet this jar, she uncorked it, letting the familiar bitter smell drift, is the same mixture Kweku and I used to treat stomach worms. Ask the villagers who lived because of it. She set it on a small stool. Now look, she continued, unwrapping the first parchment. This is a receipt from an apothecary 3 towns away. It records the purchase of a deadly poison, same roots, but in lethal dose. It is signed not by me, not by Kweku, but by the handmaiden of Queen Abena. Gasps. Abena's face tightened. Lies, she snapped. Anyone can forge. Adjoa unfurled another parchment. This, she said, is the apothecary's ledger, copied in full by my friend here. It shows repeated purchases of the same poison, paid in gold from the Queen's private stores. She held up a carved wooden slate covered in charcoal writing. And this, she added, is the priest's own confession, written as he boasted to himself while drinking, believing no one listened. He speaks of changing prophecy for payment, of planting jars, of staging collapses. Torbai lunged forward. Blasphemy, he shouted. You twist my words. Kweku stepped onto the platform, having slipped in amidst the confusion. He bowed quickly to the king, then spoke loudly. My king, elders, people of Agyeman, he called. I, Kweku, swear on my father's grave and on the herbs that healed many of you, that I heard these words with my own ears. I copied them that same night. If I lie, may the leaves refuse to answer me forever. The elder who had doubted the prophecy hobbled forward, taking the slate. He squinted, reading slowly, lips moving. Torbai's face drained of color. Abena looked around wildly, like a cornered animal. You will believe scraps of wood over the voice of gods? The priest cried. The girl practices witchcraft. She could have enough. King Kofi roared, struggling to his feet. His voice, though weakened by years and illness, still carried the weight of a king. Bring the priest here, he ordered. Guards grabbed Torbai's arms, dragging him closer. Abena hissed under her breath, saying nothing. But fear, once turned outward, can rebound. The priest's survival instinct kicked in. They forced me, he blurted. She paid me. He jerked his chin toward Abena. She said the kingdom could not accept a woman on the stool. She offered gold, land. I only gave shape to what many already thought. The courtyard erupted. Queen Abena, the priest lied. We banished an innocent princess. Kojo staggered back as if struck. Abena stepped forward, eyes blazing. He lies, she shouted. He wants to drag me down with him. I only ever defended this kingdom. The gods had nothing to do with this. Adjoa interrupted, voice shaking with contained fury. This was not spirit against flesh. It was greed against justice. And justice has finally found its tongue. The elders formed a tight semicircle around Torbai. For years, one said coldly, we gave you offerings, our trust, our fears. You told us which wars to fight, which sacrifices to make. And all along, you played with our lives like child with stones. Torbai dropped to his knees. I only followed the queen's wishes, he stammered. She said if Adjoa ruled, our enemies would laugh. She said the people would revolt. I feared losing my place. You feared losing your bribes, the elder snapped. Another elder turned to Kofi. My king, he said, voice shaking with a mix of rage and sorrow. We allowed this man to speak as if gods themselves stood in his throat. We punished your daughter, not because of proof, but because of fear of silence. We owe her more than apologies. Kojo stepped forward, face ashen. Is it true? He asked the priest. You framed her so I could sit on that stool. Torbai looked away, ashamed. Yes, he muttered. But your mother, Kojo flinched. Abena reached for him. My son, he pulled back. Do not touch me, he said hoarsely. All my life, you told me Adjoa's shadow was too heavy for me. You turned my own blood into my rival. Today I see there was no shadow, only your chains. Adjoa watched him, hurt and sympathy flickering together. She had resented him once. Now she saw he, too, had been weaponized. The priest bowed his head. Whatever punishment you decide, he whispered, I accept. For once, the gods were very quiet. They did not speak through smoke or dreams. They waited to see what humans would do with truth now that they finally held it. The elders moved to the center of the courtyard, forming a circle with King Kofi. In Agyeman, when judgment touched royalty and priesthood, it was not rushed. They spoke in low tones, digging through old laws like roots. After some time, the council elders stepped forward. People of Agyeman, he announced, we have weighed the deeds of Queen Abena and Chief Priest Torbai against the laws of our ancestors. He gestured toward Torbai. This man, he said, used the cloth of the gods to hide his greed. He twisted prophecy for gold, sent an innocent woman into exile, and nearly cost us a true leader. For this, he is stripped of his title, his staff broken, his name removed from our shrines. He is banished beyond our borders, never again to speak for any spirit in this land. Guards seized Torbai's staff and snapped it in two. The crack echoed like a small thunder. He cried out, but no one moved to comfort him. The elder turned to Abena. As for Queen Abena, he continued, voice heavier, our law is clear. Whoever plots against rightful heir with falsehood shall lose the privilege their scheme was meant to protect. She used her position to poison King's heart against his daughter and to tilt the stool toward her own son. Abena shook her head furiously. I did it for the kingdom, she protested. A woman on the throne would. Save your breath, the elder cut in. We have seen today that the only thing you fought for was your pride. He inhaled deeply. Queen Abena is hereby removed as queen, he declared. Her title stripped, her ornaments returned to the stool. She will be sent to her father's distant village with only enough to eat modestly. She will not step foot in this palace again, nor give counsel in matters of the stool. Abena staggered. You cannot do this, she screamed. I am mother of the future king. All eyes turned to Kojo. He met her gaze with tears in his own. I do not want a throne soaked in my sister's tears, he said quietly. If your place beside me depends on her suffering, then I choose to stand alone. Her mouth opened and closed. For the first time, she seemed smaller than her cloth. Guards gently but firmly removed her golden crown and heavy jewelry. They placed them at the foot of the stool. As they led her away, some villagers turned their faces. Others watched, not with joy, but with sober understanding. Injustice leaving a palace is not celebration. It is surgery, necessary, painful. Silence followed, heavy and expectant. Then King Kofi did something that made every mouth drop. He rose shakily from his seat and, with effort, stepped down from the platform. He walked, slowly, each step a struggle, until he stood in front of Adjoa. Then he knelt, an old king, knees touching dust. Gasps rippled through the crowd again. Father, no, Adjoa whispered, horrified. He looked up at her, eyes shining. I failed you, he said, voice breaking. A father is meant to shield his children from lies. I handed you to them. I listened to fear instead of to the truth in your eyes. If you cannot forgive me, I will understand. I would die knowing I was the one who broke my own house. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She reached out and took his hands, pulling him carefully to his feet. You are still my father, she said softly. You were deceived, yes. You were weak, but you were not the one who mixed the poison or forged the visions. I forgive you, not because what you did was small, but because my own heart cannot heal while holding this stone. He sobbed openly. The elder raised his staff. By the laws of Agyeman, he announced, Princess Adjoa's banishment is lifted. Her name is restored. And because our law honors the firstborn heir, the right to the stool returns to her. All eyes turned to Kojo. He stepped forward, shoulders squared. Adjoa, he said, voice thick, I sat where I did not belong because others pushed me there. I allowed it because part of me wanted it, even when my spirit felt wrong. If you wish me gone, I will leave. If you wish me punished, I will accept. But if you will have me, I would rather be your soldier than a king built on lies. She studied him silently. She saw the boy who once shared mangoes with her in the palace garden, who used to run behind her pretending to be her guard. She also saw the man who had enjoyed the attention meant for her. Kojo, she said, the throne is not just a seat. It is a weight. For years, that weight crushed me in exile. Now it presses on your conscience. We can let it crush us separately, or we can carry it together. She turned to the elders. I ask that I be confirmed as queen, she declared. Let the law stand. But let Kojo serve as my right hand, my war general, my advisor. Let us repair together what was broken in our family, so the kingdom may learn to repair its own wounds. A murmur of surprise, then approval, moved through the crowd. Wise, someone whispered. Just like her mother, another remarked. The elder raised both hands. So let it be, he proclaimed. The goddess of justice sits upon this stool today. The coronation rites began again, but this time with new words. Drums rolled like thunder. Adjoa knelt before the stool as the crown was placed on her braided head. Adjoa, daughter of Kofi, the linguist intoned, by the blood of your ancestors and the will of this people, we seat you as Queen of Agyeman. Rule with courage, rule with mercy, and never again allow lies to sit where truth should stand. Kojo knelt beside her, bowing his head. She placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. The crowd erupted in chants. Nana Adjoa, Nana Adjoa. The kingdom, which had once watched her walk away in chains, now watched her rise in gold. Days after the coronation, the palace hummed with a different energy. In one scene, we see Adjoa walking through the market without heavy entourage, stopping to speak with traders, hearing their concerns firsthand. In another, she visits the exile village where she had lived for years, embracing the widow who gave her shelter, thanking villagers for treating a stranger like family. Back at the palace, a new chief priest kneels before the council, swearing an oath. If I twist the words of the spirits for my own gain, may those same spirits turn their backs on me. Kojo oversees training of young warriors, teaching them not only to fight, but to question orders that smell of injustice. In a small mud house deep in her father's village, former Queen Abena sits alone, staring at a worn cloth that used to be part of her royal wrapper. Her face is lined, not with poverty, but with regret. She hears news from passers-by. They say Queen Adjoa opened the granaries during the drought. They say she built new schools for girls and boys. They say she consults both elders and youth before big decisions. Abena closes her eyes, a single tear sliding down her cheek. She had wanted power. In chasing it, she lost both throne and son's trust. Jealousy does not always scream. Sometimes it whispers in shrines and council rooms. It dresses itself in concern. I only want what's best for the kingdom, while poisoning wells of trust. For years, Agyeman believed its gods had turned against the daughter. But in truth, it was humans who turned against justice and blamed the heavens. The gods did not banish Adjoa. Fear did. Pride did. And the silence of those who suspected but said nothing did. We see the elder who supported her now sitting proudly at her side in council, his earlier doubts replaced with relief. Yet truth, the voice says, walked her slow, dusty road and arrived right on Coronation Day. Not with an army, but with evidence. Not with swords, but with confession. On screen, Adjoa sits on the stool, listening as a young village girl read the petition about wanting to study medicine. Adjoa smiles. The law of Agyeman said the firstborn child, male or female, deserved the throne, the narrator notes. But law on paper means nothing if hearts in power refuse it. Adjoa's story did more than seat a woman on a stool. It reminded a kingdom that justice is not male or female. It is simply right. From today, Adjoa declares, no priest will claim vision without witnesses. No queen or king will make decisions based only on dreams of benefit. And no child, born in palace or hut, will be condemned without proof. Kojo adds, we will build a kingdom where fear cannot dress itself as prophecy. The crowd cheers. If you were Adjoa, would you have come back to the palace that threw you out? Or would you have stayed in the village where you finally found peace? When you are wronged deeply, is justice worth reopening old wounds? And if you were Kojo, raised on a stolen promise, would you cling to a crown that is not yours, or bow and take your place beside the one you wronged? Remember, truth can be delayed, but it cannot be buried forever. A lie may sit on a throne for a while, but sooner or later, the rightful owner will knock, sometimes wearing dust on her feet and a veil over her face. The question is not whether truth will arrive. It is whether we will have the courage to make space for it when it does. Where are you watching from? Accra, Kumasi, Lagos, Nairobi, Johannesburg, London, Toronto, New York, a village nobody puts on a map? Type your city in the comments so we can see how far Adjoa's story has traveled. And if this tale stirred something in you, if it reminded you that power without integrity is as fragile as a cracked crown, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs courage to stand for truth, even when it costs them everything.